Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the broad topic of a safe campus environment. We are all probably familiar, but let's take a closer look.
Let's look at a modern type of school. For example, it might look like this: heavy front doors, hallways, classrooms, laboratories. Then, let's say there's a study room and a library across the courtyard. It wouldn't be the same without those. And of course, carbon.
The school building is a unique place, a place for science, knowledge, and the future, whose characteristics are defined by the people who share it. The people who share the place include the professors, students, researchers, or the operations staff.
The institution that has two missions. The first is education. It can look like this, or like this, sometimes like this.
The second mission is research. Universities are scientific institutions that help us understand the world around us. In order to fulfill these missions, universities must provide an open and safe space for all.
Sounds simple, doesn't it? In practice, it's a bit more complicated. Even though we have similar goals, we each have different roles and responsibilities. We each come from different backgrounds that we bring to the school with us, metaphorically, of course.
With different people sharing the same space, it's only a matter of time before situations arise that test our values.
Conflicts are inevitable. It's important not to hide from them, to learn to prevent them, and to deal with them correctly.
If not handled sensitively, even small misunderstandings can escalate into a university-wide conflict.
We define such a conflict as a situation that prevents or makes it difficult for someone to freely fulfill his role here.
Conflicts that can escalate into dangerous and often illegal situations at universities are various forms of bullying, discrimination, or sexually motivated violence.
We know that interpersonal relationships do not happen in a vacuum. Individual relationships interact with each other and with the environment. In our case, the school environment. Each conflict creates an atmosphere that draws more people in over time. It's true that the longer such a conflict is unresolved, the deeper the impact. Let's face it, college is a competitive environment. Degrees, job titles, number of publications, years of study, but also intelligence, popularity, or appearance might affect our position relative to others. They determine the extent of the power of our voice.
The university is a ladder on which we all have a place. The people above us are our superiors. Those below us are our responsibility. The rung we occupy in the system determines the extent of the power of our voice.
It's not always easy to recognize how much our actions can affect the lives of others. But we all wield some sort of power over others to varying degrees. That is why it's good to try to become aware of it. In a complex system, we're ultimately responsible for it.
The higher we are on the social ladder of the school, the more responsibility we have for addressing problematic situations.
No one is saying it's an ideal solution. A person in a higher position has better tools to positively change a potentially dangerous situation.
But that doesn't mean that the rest of us can only wait for rescue from above. We can all do our part to ensure a safe environment.
The one thing we can move away from is humor. Anything goes with humor, right?
It depends on the context, of course. The boundaries of humor naturally shift.
For example, a professor jokes among his friends that women can't program. Someone will probably point out to him that he is disrespecting women and the situation won't escalate. The problem arises, however, if he makes the same joke during a lecture.
Students are less likely to stand up and point out the inappropriateness of the comment to the professor.
What's worse, it will probably make most people laugh under the pressure of the professor.
Right. Basing the punchline of a joke on stereotypes is potentially very dangerous. The possibility of feedback is rather limited in such a case, so the speaker has a great deal of responsibility.
It happens. We're only human after all. It's good to listen to the other party's position, acknowledge the mistake, apologize, actively work with feedback, and maybe next time we should try joking about chemical compounds.
Nobody wants to spoil the fun. Inappropriate jokes or remarks, however, do gradual, creeping damage. They fester in the students, dividing them, creating an opportunity for bullying. Therein lies the potential danger. Another serious and unfortunately common phenomenon is discrimination. In short, it is any unequal treatment based on ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, health status, or age.
Unequal treatment based on each other's differences creates the perfect environment for bullying. That is, the phenomenon of being deliberately singled out in an active way by someone in a group. A situation where the entire group turns against an individual is called mobbing. And if a superior person is involved in unfair behavior, we call that behavior bossing.
What about intimate relationships? Especially those between teacher and student are a complicated subject. Yes, we're all adults here, but there's a fine line between flirting and unsolicited attention. Generally, all love relationships on campus are universally subject to higher standards of ethical behavior. We need to think more about the possible effects.
A very serious negative phenomenon in the academic environment is unwanted sexual behavior. It starts with small comments on appearance or inappropriate jokes, can escalate to stalking, unsolicited propositions, or touching, easily leading to illegal forms of violence.
Sexually motivated violence between people at various levels puts those involved in an uncomfortable and dangerous position. As we've said before, when authority is at play, it can be incredibly difficult to discern what the other party wants and what they don't. It can become an abuse of power.
A professor's best defense against such accusations is conscious self-reflection, setting up transparent assessment system, and testing in pairs or groups, perhaps with an open door. Everyone can be certain that it really is just an exam. In other words, nobody is going to try anything on anyone.
And can the students themselves help the situation?
Of course, a safe environment cannot be created by a command from faculty, but only by collective action and mutual respect. The common goal of academia is to conduct education under fair conditions. It takes a lot of effort, and there are hardly any shortcuts. This applies to students just as much as it does to staff. Science is hard work, and students, for example, are often involved in wider research projects as part of their final theses. We would also like to touch on undue pressure on performance.
We all feel pressure in different settings, but professors can avoid adding excessive stress by providing students with clear assignments that don't change substantially over time. They should distribute responsibilities fairly, and expectations should be adequate to the abilities of the students enrolled. It is helpful for both sides to have important changes to assignments written down, perhaps in an email, so that they can be referenced later.
Without some pressure or the insights and corrections of a professor, we would have a hard time writing a good thesis. The point is, the pressure should be reasonable. Interpersonal relationships can never be completely assumed. The first solution is always to express how you feel. Often there's a simple misunderstanding. So it may be enough to say, I am uncomfortable with the situation, to give them mentorship a second chance.
Well, what if you can't? Contexts vary, and that isn't always possible.
You're right. Sometimes verbal or written expressions aren't enough. However, there is another way. If you need to clarify a particular situation, or if you are a victim or witness of unethical behavior, you can consult a contact person without commitment. This is like an ombudsman. You can email them and arrange a meeting, but perhaps the most convenient option is to use the SafeTalk app or attend a themed workshop. SafeTalk is a communication tool found on your school's website through which you can make initial contact with a contact person. It is designed to be the ideal solution to your circumstance.
It is also possible to anonymously consult SafeTalk about your own potential misconduct. We are all human. We all make mistakes, and it's terrific that you're willing to look for possible solutions.
It is important to find common ground in order for the university environment to build solid foundations of mutual respect so that knowledge can flourish.
So that knowledge can flourish.